Hello and welcome to the lecture series on urban transport planning, subject code 17CV751, module 2. So in this session we are going to be learn about zoning and types of data to be collected for urban transport planning. So table of content. So zoning, criteria for selection of zoning, points to be considered for zoning, coding, source of data, some review questions and references. So moving on to the zoning, first we'll define what exactly is the zoning. Zoning is defined as the study area for which it is further subdivided into smaller area, so that smaller area is going to be called as zones. The purpose of zoning is to facilitate the spatial quantification of land use and economic factors, for which it actually gives an idea about travel pattern. It means a small study area we are already defined, we are going to be zoning, so each zones is going to be a true representation of a spatial and land use pattern along with the travel pattern for the particular study area. So that is going to be the purpose of subdividing into the study area into subzones or zonings. The subdivision of a zoning is also going to be helpful in geographical association for origin and destination of a travel. That is, where is the source of and destination for our travel is also being considered for the zoning has been concerned. Next is the zones within the study area are going to be called as the internal zones, and those outside the study area are going to be called as external zones. It means the area which is being covered under external cordon is going to be called as internal zone. Outside our external cordon is going to be called as an external zones. So in larger study area, if you are going to be taken into account, it is more convenient to divide the area into sectors. It means if the area of our study area has been larger, so then we are going to be zones are going to be first sector, then they are being segmented into a smaller zones. So those smaller zones are once again subdivided into subzones to get the complete idea upon the land use. Next, the points to be considered when we are going to be dividing the area or the study area into zones. The first one, land use is the most important parameter. It needs to be established while having a zones for transportation survey. It means, so in the previous session also I had emphasized the land use is nothing but the pattern on which the land is being interconnected with a type of activity for the trip generation. It may be residential zone, industrial zone, or it may be of what we say the employment has been concerned. Hence the land use has to be taken into account for zoning of transport service has been concerned. It not only gives the idea about the travel pattern or transportation survey, it also incorporates the one more parameter, that is origin and destination, which truly replicates the traffic which is being generated. It means traffic generated from each of the segment or each of the sectors or the zones are going to be giving a complete what we say the land use pattern. It has to be taken into the primary importance. Next point, while we deciding the zone should be homogeneous and land use pattern is going to be a true replica where the actual trip pattern or trip generation is going to be taken into account. Next point, is there any anticipated changes in the land use pattern? Say for example, the futuristic demand, or if any industries are going to be coming over the unused area, or it is been reserved for that area, so or otherwise any residential new layout are going to be taken, so those changes are going to be taken into account while we dividing the study area into zones. Next point, it is advantageous if we divide the subdivisions closely adapted to other bodies of a data collection, so this will facilitate the correlation of a data. It means, so if you divide the area or the study area into zones, so say for example, so if you want vehicle registration, so try to follow the RTO limit, then the vehicle registration for our study area or the zones are going to be getting correlated. So our limit of our zoning is different, RTO zoning is different, then the data it is been not properly correlated. Hence we need to try to take care that the both the data collection and study area or the zoning and some other authority data, if you want to be correlated, both zoning has to be matched approximately. Next one, so if you want to zone, it should not be too large or it should not be too small. Hence we need to allow some error. It has to be there because of what we say, the data collection and pattern. So we are going to be giving a thumb rule is a general guidelines. Say for example, if the population is going to be 1000 to 3000, it may be optimal for a smaller area, or if it's going to be a larger area, so we should have a population to be covered is 5000 to 10,000 is going to be what we say, more optical one or optimistic one. So in residential area, zone should accommodate roughly certain say some 1000 households. So it is not going to be a population, it's a 1000 household. So it should cover a minimum of 1000 household for our zoning. That is one zone. Next, the zone should be preferably should have a regular geometric form. So their centroid is going to be true representation of origin and destination. So this focal point is always try to take care that for every zone we need to identify the origin point and destination point, or otherwise the central business district as a origin and destination might be of any other sectors. Next point, sector should represent the catchment area of a trip generated on a primary route. It means the larger area, if you are going to be segmented into a sector, so those sector is going to give a complete trip generation pattern of the study area. Next one is the points to be kept while we dividing the area into zones. So we are defined what exactly the zones, importance of a zoning. So now we require some important point which has to be required in zoning of a study area. First one, zones must be compatible with screen lines and cordon lines. It means previously we had explained for data collection for a particular study area should match with the limits of some other authority. Similarly, the zones what we are going to be making for our study purpose should be compatible with the screen lines. Screen lines might be of any natural bodies or water bodies like canals or rivers or any other thing. So those are going to be called as screen line and cordon line. So it has to be compatible for the study area. Next point, zones boundaries should preferably be watershed, and it is going to be giving a complete trip making purpose. It means the always the screen line or the boundary should be watershed. So if it is not possible, at least we should have some demarcating boundary, so that it is going to be preferable to divide a zone's boundary for the study purpose. So as I explained, the screen lines might be a physical barrier or a natural barriers like canals, rivers are always going to be convenient to decide the boundary for our study area. Next is the socio-economic character should be homogeneous. It means to get a true and correct data from each of the zone, the socio-economic character should be homogeneous. It means living standard, income group. So likewise the character should be homogeneous. It should not be heterogeneous, so that the results are going to be end up erratically. Next point, the intrazonal trips should be minimized. It means always the within the zone or the study area has to be minimal. Zones should not be created within other zones. It means if our study area or the zone is zone A, so our zone should not be create another one more zone called B. So we should have proper point to be considered before starting our analysis. So hence zone should create within our cordon line, or otherwise it should be uniform without having what we say heterogeneous data has been concerned. Moving on to the next point, the zone system should generate and attract approximately the equal trips household, population or an area. For an example, so if the trip is been originated from residential area to industrial area, so it should give approximately some equal number of trips. So it should not give what we say, if you are concerned about the trips which is been originated from residential area to education sector, we should have some equal number of data. Then the zone system should be generated and attract approximate equal trips. So it is an approximate, it should not be an accurate one. So that zone should be such a design from the central business district, from the land use pattern, always try to be uniform with respect to sizing and sampling rate has been concerned. Moving on to the next point, the total number of zone should not be too large. So as I said, so if the zone is going to be too large, data collection, time, framing and also the survey method and cost of surveying is also going to be escalated. Next comes, so we are decided the zoning, or after deciding the zoning, so what we are going to do, we need to code it properly to get back the correct data for our analysis. So first one is the coding. Coding is nothing but, so as I said, so we can give it numerical numbering starting from 0 to 9 to identify the correct sector, then zones and approximately the subzoning has been concerned. So as a usual practice, we are going to be dividing the study area into 9 sectors. So consider the central business district to be designated as 0. Always 0 represent origin is going to be starting from our central business district. Then we are going to give the number 1 to remaining numbers like 1, 2, 3 like in anti-clockwise manner, and usually the external lining or after internal zoning or external cordons are going to be represented as 9, so that the intrazonal movement is going to be carried out by prefixing the number 9. So this is an usual thumb rule we have been practicing. So moving on to the next one, the sectors are going to be subdivided into a 10 zones. So each of the 10 zones are going to be start bearing with a number 0 to a 9. So as I explained, so the CBD is going to be designated as a 0, then each of the sectors to be start from 0 to 9. Each of the zones are going to be once again subdivided with respect to 0 to 9 numbering. Say for example, if the number is going to be 481, so according to our coding, it belongs to first number represent the fourth sector, 8 that is the second digit numbers is going to represent what is the subzoning, and 1 represent the zoning. So it is a usual practice. Say for example, if you want to have only the say it is going to be crossing 3 digit, say 4, 8 then 9, it means 4819 means, is it possible? Is it possible? No, because the true representation has to be taken into account with respect to inside our study area. Usually if you want to have a reserve for the external cordon line only, it is going to be say 4819. So that is 9 last number represent external zoning has been concerned. So after coding, we are going to be getting the data for our planning purpose has been concerned. So moving on to the next step, it is called sources of data. So in the previous session we defined what exactly the data. So the data we are going to be collecting in the 2 types. One is called as primary data or primary source of data. Next is secondary source of data. So moving to the first one, the primary data. So the data which is being collected through the actual field survey, those data are going to be called as primary data. So it may be any inventory or the survey if you are going to be collected from the particular survey or the study area. So those data are going to be called as primary data. So data may be on concurrent or current behavior, that is a trip generation and the pattern which is being observed from the actual field survey. So those are going to be called as primary data. Moving on to the next type of data, that is called as secondary data. So data which is being collected other than the actual field survey through any other census or any other authorizing agency, so those data are going to be called as secondary data. So for example, the population it is been registered in our statistics, or otherwise the employment, or otherwise what is going to be called as the living standard, the socioeconomic parameters. So all those data are going to become under secondary sources of data or secondary data. So in this session we are learnt the zoning, how to code the zoning, how to subdivide it, then how actually the data is being collected, and after that one we are being giving the sources of data and the types of data which is required for any type of project has been concerned. So to end up this session, we are going to have some review question. The first question: the study area are subdivided into the option the study area, subdivisions, zones, or none of the above. The correct answer is going to be the zones, that is study area is subdivided into zones. Second one: to ensure a meaningful conclusions from the collected data are obtained from the zones are, first option, external zones, internal zones, only from the external zones, or from both internal and external zones. Obviously correct answer we have to have the correct from the what is going to be called as an both external zoning and internal zoning has been concerned. Moving on to the next question: while dividing the zones should be homogeneous or non-homogeneous? So correct answer is should be homogeneous. So non-homogeneous is going to give erratic data for the study area, hence the zone should be divided into homogeneous only. Moving on to the next question: the coding helps in identifying the options, sectors, zones. Next one is going to be subzones and all of above. So the correct answer is going to be all of the above, because coding is going to represent sector, zone, subzoning. So as given the example of 481, so that is a true representation of coding. Next one: as a general guideline, a population dash may be optimal for small area for zoning for the study purpose. So obviously is going to be ranging from 1000 to 3000 is going to be more optimal for deciding for zoning purpose has been concerned. So these are the correct answers. Then moving on to the reference, so we had referred for this session also Kadial ELR, Traffic Engineering and Transport Planning, Kanna Publisher, Kisti CJ, Transport Engineering and Introduction, so print as all publishers. Thank you.